experience after she had told me that there was a presence of a woman in the house. She had awakened one night and she felt the presence of somebody being in the house, and she looked through the doorway of her bedroom and saw a woman standing there, and she was angrily yelling at her, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," and disappeared out of view. And again, when she told me this, I was just like, okay, um, that's cool. So I had my experience at 4 o'clock in the morning right here. And to answer Dusty's question as to what would somebody be doing up at 4:30 in the morning for breakfast, well, that's when you're up at 4:30 when you have to be at work at 5:30. So I am standing right here one morning. This house is quiet. It's dark. I am cooking my breakfast, and in my left ear, I hear a woman's voice say, "Hey." Well, needless to say, for a skeptic, well, I had a hair-raising experience. I turned around, flipped on all the lights like a scared little boy, ran over into the bedroom, woke my wife up, and I'm like, "You need to tell that woman to leave me alone." Now, she said to me, "So you believe me?" Well, yeah, I believe her. Now, I know Renee mentioned that I had talked to her last week, and I mentioned it on Facebook as well, where it was probably mid-evening, I would say maybe about 8 o'clock. And again, I'm here in the kitchen. Actually, I was making some tea for my wife and I, and she's in the room behind me in the office. And I come over here to this cabinet. I open up the cabinet. I grab my tea. I go making the tea. And as you can see, there is a tea bag laying up here. Okay.
He does have a really nice house, too.
Very nice. I like that kitchen.
Nice and flat.
Very organized.
And I'm standing here, and I hear something hit the floor behind me. I turn around to find the tea bag on the floor.
Nope.
Now,
I would run.
It's too heavy to just fall. And if it did just fall because I might have put it there the wrong way, it's just too heavy. It would just do that.
Right.
Okay? But not fly from there behind me onto the floor. I guess whoever's in the house wanted me to know that they were here. And at that very same
Maybe they
time
wanted
that
coffee
I had mentioned
instead.
that, and I told that to my wife, who was in the room behind me here, she also did tell me that at the same time that I had mentioned that the tea bag had hit the floor, that she had seen a shadow figure walk through her room. We have had some shadow figures here before. I have finally seen some shadows moving while I sit here watching TV. But the woman, well, we have an idea of who she is. We have an idea of where she actually died, which is somewhere in this property when back in the early 80s, it used to be a burrow pit, had about 30 feet of water in it, and apparently is a victim of a serial killer that was here in the 80s. William Darrell Lindsay, for those of you that live in St. Augustine, he was killing the crack whores over on King Street and Holmes. He would pick them up.
That's not funny. It's terrible.
But murder them. Well, 2 women were not discovered after he was arrested. He, matter of fact, he had murdered 8 women, and only 6 were found. 2 were not. But he did say that he put her body in the burrow pit in about 30 feet of water, and they were never able to find her. Well, needless to say that this subdivision is built on that very same burrow pit. So
I bet you have more than one ghost in your house then.
I don't want to mention anybody's names. I don't need family coming over here trying to, spook me for information. But hey,
hi Roger, hi Grandma.
We'll keep it quiet for now. Thanks for having me. Enjoy a ghostly encounter. Good night.
Yeah, all right.
So maybe she was throwing stuff at Ephraim because she doesn't like men.
Well, maybe also because Ephraim didn't believe it at first. I mean, that was in his last blurb. Maybe she was like, "You don't believe me?
Have some tea.
There's your tea. Real women drink coffee anyway. You should know that." Just
with you on that one.
you know, I think he has more than one ghost in his house. He's talking about a woman saying hey to him. He's talking about multiple shadow figures. Something's obviously trying to get their
So
attention.
they think that she's beneath the building, right? Is that?
Yeah.
They
Which
didn't
is
move the
messed up.
bodies? Yeah.
They couldn't find her. They
It
don't
was a
know.
joke. I was referencing
Oh.
something. Anyway,
Well, as always, I am Renee, and this is Dusti, and we're going to be talking about the Black-Eyed Children, the real-life Men in Black tonight, and our local story will be the Casa de Suenos, told by a very special guest. So we'll get into that all here in just a second. That video was sent in from Ephraim. We love getting your haunted happenings and all your encounters. I've gotten a lot of submissions from people. I know that some of you have been asking me when your submission is going to be shown on the stream. For next week, I already have, or not next week, rather, Friday. I have a couple already picked for Friday. I know that Anthony C., your photos and experiences are going to be shared on Friday. So I know that he watches every week. And I have that coming for Friday's stream. It's really cool. And I know the house he's talking about. It's very similar. Well, it's the same house from, remember Brianna? We talked about Brianna's experiences in her bedroom. And I told you about the creepy thing that happened to me in that house. Well, he has other creepy happenings that happened and some really cool photos that we'll share then. Now, Dusti, any input on our friend Ephraim's video?
no.
All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into our first story for tonight, which is about
Black-Eyed Children.
Sounds like a band name.
I almost wanted to say Black-Eyed Peas. It keeps trying to come out automatically. Just Black-Eyed Peas. But it would be kind of a cool band name. I don't like anything that has to do with children, but it's actually a contemporary legend. Yeah, so they are beings that resemble children between the ages of 6 and 16. They supposedly have really pale skin and solid black eyes. And they also are usually hooded or wearing hats, trying to kind of conceal their face there. So they also are said to kind of travel in groups. So they come in groups of 2 or more. They're never really alone. And they're usually seen hitchhiking or knocking on doors or car windows, coming up to cars.
Yeah.
So they'll ask for a favor. If they come knocking on your door or ringing your doorbell, then they'll ask for a favor, kind of maybe to borrow a phone or to have something to eat or use the bathroom, whatever it is. They try really, really hard to get you to open the door. They really want to go inside.
I think we talked about this last night, how I read a story, like, we were talking about how, like, for whatever reason, this is, like, a new phenomenon that's been happening, or at least that people are talking about. And then I was telling you that I've actually read a lot of stories involving Black-Eyed Children, including one with, like, a younger girl. I think she was, like, 13 or 14, and this is in the late 90s, early 2000s, where her mom was, like, working late. It was, like, 10 o'clock at night or something like that, and she heard a knock at her door. So she, like, runs downstairs. She opens the door, and there's this little child, like, maybe 8 to 10 or something like that, standing on her doorstep. And so the child's wearing a hood over his face, and he looks like very smallish, and she can't really see a whole lot of detail to him or his face, but he asks her if her mom is home. And of course she's like, nah, my mom's not home, little kid. She's at work. What do you need? What are you bothering me for? And he said, okay, well, I just need to come in and I need to call my parents. And she was like, no, naturally. And he was like, well, I'm coming. I need to come in. I need to call my parents, and was like insistent on it until she was like, nah, homie, I'm going to call the cops. You need to take a step back. And she slammed the door on him. And then all of a sudden, as she turned away to go back upstairs, she heard clawing at her door. It sounded like screaming or growling. And so she opened the door again to yell at what she thought was just a little boy or whatever. And when she opened the door, there was nobody standing there at all. So I would not have opened the door. If I'm being
I would not have opened that door. No, you
real with
you go out the door, not up the stairs. Remember.
Right.
Remember, people. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much how most of the stories go. These kids supposedly also have a super monotonous voice, not a lot of inflection. Yeah. But also a lot of the reports say that when the person, the victim, so to speak, starts to even head towards the door, there is just before they even know who's at the door, there is an overwhelming fear and anxiety that builds as they go towards the door, and they have no idea why. Yeah, so they do become super persistent, though. They will try and try to get you to let them in. If you're
They
smart,
get violent even.
Yeah. However, they do say that they can't go in without being invited. So that's good, I guess. It's not like they're gonna break in if you say no. I'm not gonna,
I guess.
yeah. Yeah, so there are theories that that claim them to be vampires, and I guess that would be maybe one of a reason that they can't go in without being invited. I guess that's like some kind of vampire folklore there. But yeah, vampires, extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, or demons. I feel like we've talked about most of these. We've encountered most of these in our ghostly encounter live stream so far. So
demons for sure. I that's the big theory for me is like the demon thing.
Demons, yeah.
Not that like I'm like the end all be all. My opinion is what goes. But I think this is a demonic entity. I think that's why people are feeling that anxiousness, that feeling of fear and doom. I also think that from what I've read and heard from people that perform exorcisms and just like my own personal experience, I had a really nasty experience in Potter's Wax Museum in St. Augustine, Florida, with something that I think might have been demonic. It involved a doll and it involved a priest, a spirit that showed up as a priest. Now, in exorcisms, they always say that demons will show themselves as innocent figures, such as priests, pregnant women, just women in general, or children, especially children. You see a lot of children.
Children. And that's how they get you to let them in, is because it looks like an innocent child. Really quick, I'm going to sidebar here. Mom, if you're watching...
Hi, Mom!
Can you turn the porch light on? I forgot. It's getting really dark.
I'm scared. Can you come pick me up? So with the black-eyed children, though, do you have any stories related to?
Yeah, actually, the first... Mom, turn the porch light on. I'm gonna have to get up. Okay, so she is watching. Ooh. Thank you. Really sorry about that.
You're fine.
Anyway, the legend first kind of spread with it was in the late 90s. The late 90s, with a mailing list post by Brian Bethel, where he talked about his encounter with the black-eyed children outside of a movie theater in Abilene, Texas.
I've read this.
Yeah, it's supposedly kind of how the whole thing took off there. And kind of like, Mothman, one person documented it or whatever, reported it, and then everybody started Linda, right? It was Linda. Yeah, it was Linda. Linda Scarberry. Yeah. Well, he was apparently, going to pay a bill, and he stopped in the movie theater parking lot to write a check. He was just stopped there. It was right next door. He was going to write a check, and two boys approached his car. So one of them was a little bit older than the other one. The two boys approached his car, and then one of them, the older one, tapped on his window. And as he rolled the window down, what it said is that he immediately felt, here we go, a soul-racking fear. No, he doesn't know why. It was just an overwhelming fear. And the little boys told him that they wanted to see a movie, but they forgot their money at home. So here's what's weird. Instead of asking for money to see a movie, they were asking him for a ride to take them home. To get their money. So yeah, he thought that was weird too. And also that the last showing I already started. It was late, so not really like they were going to get to the movie if he had done that anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I kind of hate that.
what?
That's freaky. Well, because I mean, I'm a logical person, right? This is a freaky scenario in general. And I'd like to think that if these children, let's say, weren't black-eyed children, they were just children, something freaky is going on anyway. Gang initiation, something just weird is going on. You know what I mean? That is a big giveaway right there. Why aren't they asking for money? Why are they asking for a ride home? And if they're
To get
young
in the car,
boys,
yeah.
where are their parents?
Never trust teenagers.
I don't, but they're not even teenagers, you're saying. I'm seeing boys that are 13 and under.
Okay, 13 is a teenager, but yeah, that was a joke. It was
Barely.
It was a joke anyway.
That
But
seems really odd to me.
yeah, I mean, if something never, doesn't really make sense, don't trust it. It doesn't matter if it's, it doesn't matter if it's a kid. I mean, I guess typically you don't want to just leave a kid stranded in a parking lot
Call the
at night.
police.
Yeah, I will get you an escort home, but it's not going to be me.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I'm not putting myself in that situation. So
but
what happens with these kids after?
Yeah, so they're like, mister, we need a ride home. They were reassuring him they don't have a gun, They're like, we don't have a gun, mister. We're not going to hurt you, mister.
Okay, pause. I'm sorry. Who says that? Hi, how you doing, Dusti? I don't have a gun.
Well, good to know, because that was my concern.
Hi,
Well,
neighbor.
I guess if they're
today?
trying
I don't
to
have a
get into
gun.
they're trying to get into his car, they're like, let us in. It's okay,
Yeah,
I don't have a gun.
I mean, even if you're like, I'm not gonna hurt. Who says that? Kids aren't like, I'm not gonna hurt you.
There was something. Stop. There was even something that said that it was kind of like they were insinuating they didn't need a gun to hurt him.
Ooh, I hate that.
We don't.
Hate it.
I don't know. That was just something that they read, but yeah, they kept saying that, and they kept trying to get him to let them in, and he. Apparently, it was when he broke eye contact with him that the fear became just completely encompassing. That he just overwhelmed with this anxiety, and it wasn't until he looked back at them that he realized their eyes actually turned a solid black, and he was terrified because not only is the whole situation a little out of the ordinary, now they have super black eyes, just but yeah, so the kids actually, they began to get frustrated with Bethel for making excuses, and they started to get a little, like you said, maybe not violent, but they were banging
aggressive.
on the door. Yeah, aggressive. There we go. Banging on the door, pulling at the handle, like, we don't have a gun, mister. Just let us in, mister. And saying that we can't get in the car unless you say it's okay. And they can't. So they can't go in. They can't go in unless they're invited, unless it's okay. So, they were trying real hard, but he eventually just put the car in reverse and tore out of the parking lot.
So what happens? I know that we talked about this a little bit last night, but what do we think happens if we do say, yeah, sure, come in, strange little child? Like, what happens?
Well, I can tell you one thing that I know is that I'm never going to find out, but
me either. I don't have a gun. Great. I'm with you, Roger. Drive. You drive away. I would push that little kid down and say, go get your parents and tell them that an adult just pushed you. I would be glad to tell them why. Don't have a gun, mister.
I really want to know.
Have a gun.
I'd love to know that you were listening to me really hard, but Roger was like, last episode.
What?
I don't know who Roger is, but you said Roger, and Roger was last episode. This is Brian.
No. No, the man that's watching.
Oh.
How embarrassing for you.
Yeah, anyway. It is a little weird. But I thought you meant Roger Scarberry, because that was last episode. I was like, Roger's not in the car.
I'm dying. Oh my God.
But yes, don't just drive.
Yes,
but
just drive away.
Supposedly, something, if you let them in, then like just really streaks of bad luck will follow. Hey, listen. Really, like, bad things will follow, maybe death, just, negative things. That's not really.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
I have yet to read one about anybody that opened the door.
So people are smarter than.
Maybe because it's just the nervousness they feel. I feel like if there wasn't that fear while walking towards the door, that maybe.
I guess so, but also that's true though. If you're having an overwhelming sense of fear, people always say follow your gut feeling. In this case, I don't let anybody inside my house unless I know you and I knew you were coming over or whatever. I'm not letting you inside my house. I don't care.
But I don't have a gun.
Yeah.
Well, good
Yeah,
to know.
can you imagine if a stranger, especially in today's world, came up to you and said, "I don't have a gun"? My first thought would be like, they definitely have a gun. That's crazy to me. Just like there was a meme that said, "This house is not haunted" on a for sale sign.
Right, I saw that.
I was like, totally haunted.
But every sign has a reason. You have to wonder what made them want to put that there.
Yeah, why do they need to say that? Exactly. Any other input on Black-Eyed Children? Anything else you need to say?
No.
You've laid it all out on the table.
I pretty much do that as we talk. I don't.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the good part about us having a conversation. Well, we're gonna move on to our next story, which is about the Men in Black. Here comes the Men in Black. Sorry. Anyway, I'm talking about the real life Men in Black. How awkward was that? I mean, they kind of are. Yes,
I don't know. I'm feeling some Will Smith
there. This is sort of in similar fashion to the movie, the franchise Men in Black franchise, except these are actual intergalactic agents that are a part of what many believe either the FBI or they're part of the CIA. Basically, they're some sort of branch of government that their job is to cover up any UFO and alien cases and pretty much any information anybody has on either of those things, any extraterrestrial experiences. These guys come in and they cover it up. But it gets worse because they're not just like average people. Your neighbor, well, hey, actually, hold that thought. I was going to say your neighbor probably isn't
Men in Black.
a Men in Black, but I don't know because I'll get into that. So usually these agents will come up with anytime anybody's had a UFO sightings, they'll come and visit. And the first sightings of these bizarre black suited agents became existent in the 1940s and 1950s when there were more frequent UFO sightings. That's when Roswell happened, the whole Area 51 thing. There was something in, I think it was like Mary Victory County or something like that in Nevada. Just a bunch of weird stuff going on in that general area. So throughout the decades, though, after the 1940s and 1950s, we're talking 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, more and more and more people have come forth claiming that they've had bizarre encounters from men wearing black suits after having what they thought was an extraterrestrial experience.
I thought you were going to say of like the third kind or something. I don't know.
I mean,
you had a lot of opportunities there that you didn't take.
I missed. That was a window that I just closed. You're right.
UFOologist.
That's a hard word to say.
UFOologist.
Here's a fun thing. If you're drinking, drink every time I fumble over a word. You'll probably be drunk by the end of this.
Anyway. Nobody would have livers.
Yeah. UFOologist John Keel claimed to have been visited by the Men in Black. He said that they threatened him, and he described them as a supernatural force, almost demonic, and their facial features were exotic looking, which I don't know what that entails, but he said they looked exotic.
Exotic. Also demonic? Also, yeah. Why is ufologist, yeah, why is that a thing? Is that an actual profession?
I don't think it's a profession, but I do know the guy from Blink-182 is like the captain of the ufologist team.
All right.
I don't know. A lot of people that I've talked to actually have expressed extraterrestrial experiences to me, and it's kind of interesting. It does fit into the whole paranormal file. We're going to call it, I can't find a word. Paranormal case filing.
And now we're all drunk. There you go. That's
So anyway, some victims, well, yes, they have described them as demonic, have also described them as alien-like, like they're aliens themselves. People have said that they are usually identical-looking beings. It looks like clones of one person. They're usually bald. They usually don't have eyebrows. They don't have any facial hair. Their skin is very pale, and they usually have piercing blue eyes. So
they look like me before I put on makeup.
Yeah. The first man to be visited by the Men in Black was Howard Dahl in 1947. Howard Dahl is also called Howard Dahl. Wait, Harold Dahl?
You said the same thing. My name is Howard, but people call me Howard.
I must go by Howard specifically. It's like Cher. Don't say my last name, just Howard. No, he goes by Harold and Howard, so I think Harold's just a nickname. But Dahl
are nicknames supposed to be shorter? Never mind. Just keep going.
I don't know. Dahl was gathering logs on a fishing boat with his son, and they saw what they described as 6 donut-shaped crafts flying directly above them. They had their dog with them on this boat, and he claimed that the crafts were dropping molten toxins. I always want to say molten lava.
Molten
toxins into the lake, which eventually would lead to the death of his dog and serious injuries to his son. His son
why
ends
is
up
it always
recovering.
the dog?
The dog always gets it. In the movies, in real life, I don't know. Dahl, of course, told all of his friends that, the strange craft killed his dog and almost killed his son. And people started to talk in the small town that he was living in. And it resulted in a man wearing a black suit visiting him and told him to keep his mouth shut if he knew it was good for him. And that if he knew it was good for him, then, he would stop talking and his life wouldn't be at risk anymore, pretty much. So after the alleged encounter, several Air Force agents were seen paying a visit to Dahl's house. These were people that were undercover. I was reading an article that described them not like coming in full like Air Force outfit, but they were just individuals that were clearly trying to be disguised, and that they would knock on his door and he would very quickly let them in, and they would stay for hours and hours before sneakily leaving. So after these Air Force agents came and visited Dahl went back and said none of this ever happened. He made up the whole story, and that he was just playing a little silly trick on all of his friends. Well,
just kidding.
Also, right? Yeah,
I was kidding.
Killed my dog and almost my son. Just a joke. But his son the whole time, by the way, is like, no, Dad, what are you talking about? Anyway, after this Air Force agent meeting and this whole recalling what he had said, reclaiming what he had said, I guess, he also gets a new truck and pays off the mortgage on his house. So there's a little conspiracy behind this that maybe he was paid off to keep his mouth shut too. Since this is the first encounter with the Men in Black, maybe they didn't think that they were going to be intimidating enough. Maybe, I don't know the reason why he would have been paid off. But at the end of Dahl's life, he would later admit that he was paid to keep quiet, and that's the reason he got all that new nice stuff, and that he seriously did see something. And he even had documentation, like receipts from the U.S. government, saying that he was going to keep his mouth quiet in this agreement that he signed, and that if he talked about it, something could happen. I mean,
you remember that joke I made 50 years ago about seeing aliens? Yeah, I was just kidding. It actually was real.
It was real. I was just kidding about just kidding.
I was kidding. Yeah.
It's super interesting to read. There's a whole bunch of different accounts with the Men in Black. There's another one from Jack Robinson and his family. They experienced strange events just as Robinson, who is a ufologist, was digging deeper and deeper and collecting more evidence on UFOs and UFO sightings. He came home one day to see his apartment completely ransacked, and the evidence that he had been collecting of the UFOs were tampered with, and several articles were missing. Mary Robinson, his wife, started to see a man dressed completely in a black suit hanging around the hallway to their apartment, and it even seemed like he was watching their door at some points. So this, of course, freaked Mary out. I mean, imagine some creepy dude in a black suit is stalking you.
Aren't they supposed to be like super big?
Yes, they're huge. They're about Shaquille O'Neal's height.
You're all right.
I need to do like tongue twisters before I come on the air next time. So Mary decided to tell her friend that she was scared. One day while Jack is away and Mary is all alone by herself, she sees this dude staring at her apartment from across the street, and she calls her friend Tim Green Beckley. And Beckley's like, "Nah, Mary, you're lying. What are you, Linda Scarberry?" No, I'm just saying, he didn't say that. He was like,
Muffman.
You're not telling the truth, is what he says. And Mary said, "Oh yeah, well, if you don't believe me, come over and we can both watch this creepy guy watch my house together then." So of course Tim does, because he's a good friend. And as he's pulling up to her apartment, he can see the guy standing around the corner just across from her window. And Tim decides to snap a picture of this man. Jim's gonna pull up this picture that Tim took, and you can take a good look there. See him? Creeping? Little weirdo. You know what? I just thought about me talking all this smack about the MIB, and now I'm terrified because I'm
They're gonna
sitting
show up at your
alone in
door.
the dark. I am just a messenger of information that was already present on the
All right,
internet.
Renee, go. Who would you rather show
Anyway.
up at your door? A black-eyed children or the Men in Black?
Oh man, black-eyed children, because I could just be like, nope, and shut the door. MIB.
Well, yeah, because they can't come in.
Yeah, MIB, they just do what they need to. That's
Apparently
freaky to
ransack
think
your
about.
apartment, apparently.
I'm very scared, actually. Anyway, so, yeah, that's the whole case with Mary and the creepy guy. After the picture was taken and Tim kind of blasted it all over the local news and whatnot, the sightings stopped. And yeah, but the most recent sighting of the Men in Black was actually in 2009. And I'm sure there's even more recent ones, but I'm talking about the ones that have been like blasted, have gone viral almost. So 2009, the Sheraton Hotel of Niagara Falls, Canada, had a visit from the MIB after the manager. His name is Shane. He had seen a couple of triangular-shaped crafts over his hotel late one night. And this was over the course of 7 months. He kept just seeing them. He was leaving his job late at night, and he would see these strange objects that looked like triangles. And he started to talk about it. Yeah. But because think about it, if you saw something weird, if you're like, man, that wasn't an airplane, you're going to tell your friends and family. Maybe it's funny to you at first, but there's always that like thought in the back of your head, like, what if, you know? So that what if that he's talking about, he starts to spread the news of these triangular crafts to his employees, and then he decides to take a little vacation. He's just not there for a day or two. It's his day off or something. And of course, it goes that on his day off, 2 men come into the hotel lobby and they demand the front desk that they want to speak to the manager. They tell him, sorry, Shane's not in. He'll be in tomorrow or next week or whatever like that. And they become more aggressive. Now, I'm not talking like they're flipping luggage or whatnot, but they start to walk around.
To the manager.
Yeah, slamming down suitcases, picking up old ladies, shaking them. No, that's not happening. But they do like walk around and look at the lobby, and they become very intimidating, and they demand again to speak to the manager. They think that the front desk people are lying. And after a little while, they just seemingly disappear. They leave. Now, of course, that was footage that was captured on the security camera, and Shane, the manager, actually posted it on his YouTube page. Y'all take a look at this footage of the real-life Men in Black coming into the Sheraton Hotel lobby. It's super creepy, this video, and he has a lot of interesting stuff to say. So I'll add my commentary as he talks, but really listen to what he has to say about the experience.
One of my bellmen approached me, and he kind of had a weird look on his face, and he said to me, can we go in your office and talk? I brought him into my office, and he says, something really weird happened here yesterday, and you weren't here. He said, there's a couple guys in here looking for you. And I said, a couple guys? What do you mean? And he said, well, this is really hard for me to say. He said, but there's a couple really strange looking men that were here, and they kind of freaked everybody out, and they were asking questions about you. And of course, now I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, he goes, I don't know how to describe them except for extremely odd looking.
Look how tall
really,
they are
really
compared
tall.
to that one man.
He
I
said
see
that they
that
were
little bellhop that walked
identical
out.
height.
Yeah.
They were the exact same height.
Unless he's really
they were
short.
wearing the exact same clothes, and they had the exact same faces, like they were twins. And he said they were wearing black suits, black trench coats. They were wearing like the old-fashioned Federo hats. They had extremely, extremely pale skin. And he said they came in and they looked around a little bit and they asked for you. And I said, I'm sorry, he's actually not working today. And it seemed like they didn't believe me. So they started to walk around the hotel. And shortly after, they went to the tour desk. And he goes, I got busy. I started to have to bring cars around and get luggage. And by the time I came back, they were gone. But he goes, they freaked me out. And I really wanted to tell you that there were these weird guys in here looking for you. So, of course, now I'm a little bit skeptical and I'm a little bit freaked out all at the same time. So the first thing I do is I run into my security office because I know how to work the security system. And I rewound the cameras, and sure enough, here comes two gentlemen through the front door looking exactly how he described. Then the next day, I was talking with my tour guest, and one of them asked to talk to me. She came in my office, the same as my bellman, and she said, I need to tell you about something that happened. I heard that you heard that there were some men looking for you. And I said, yes. And she said, they asked a few questions about you, and they said strange things that I didn't understand. And they were talking about governments and conspiracies, and none of it made any sense to me. But she
That's
goes,
interesting.
they were very, very scary. And I said, well, why were they scary? And she said, they had no facial hair, none. She said they had no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. Their hair looked like they had a wig on, like it was attached to their hat, like it wasn't even real.
Like it was fake.
And
yeah.
she said, and the scariest thing, their eyes were so big and so blue.
This is the alien-like aspect of it. That's why I think they look like an alien.
And she goes, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but I swear they knew what I was thinking. I swear. And I don't think I'm crazy, but I don't even know how they could do it. And I don't know why I'm even telling you this. She goes, so I started to think about things other than you, and I don't even know if it worked. And she started to cry. And she said one more thing before she left. She said, these men, they didn't blink.
Ooh.
Not once did I see them blink.
That's gross. Yeah, they're freakishly large, and as you can see, they look like official. They look like official, and what's even more strange is that that's the only footage they captured of them, meaning that, yes, they entered the building, but seemingly they didn't leave the building. It's just really weird, the whole scenario. And I think that the whole demonic aspect, people said they look demonic. I think they just say that because they're intimidating. It's that they get that feeling that you're talking about with black-eyed children. They're overwhelmed with fear, and people relate that to demons. I don't think they're actual demons. I mean, what do I know?
They could be extraterrestrials.
But the whole idea, I was just going to say that, the whole idea behind this is that the reason the government has these guys going around covering this up is because maybe aliens and extraterrestrials are more human looking than we think, and they're living among us. So that's why I was making a joke before. Maybe your neighbor is in the MIB. Who knows? If he's bald, has no eyebrows, and piercing blue eyes, maybe it's your husband. Hey, you got a bald husband with blue eyes?
Doesn't blink. Yeah.
The government constantly makes jokes about UFOs and conspiracies behind aliens, but I think it's just to dilute from the fact that they are living among us. But I really don't think that that's that creepy to think about.
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Aliens? No.
I don't have a gun.
No.
We don't have aliens. It's the same idea. Well, we're going to move on to our last story of the night. This is our local story. And to tell you about it, we have our special guest. You'll know.
I wonder who it is. Who is it? Who is it?
It is
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Jim.
Oh my gosh.
Again.
I had no idea.
You're stuck with me again.
Suspense. That was suspenseful.
Jim, you're Charlie Chaplining. You're very silent.
We're going to talk about a little fun place here in St. Augustine, one that is well known throughout the world, a small Spanish bed and breakfast.
Jim is going to talk about the Casa de Suenos.
Casa de Suenos.
Hold on.
Yeah, Renee.
Let me bring up that screen real quick so you can see it. There we go. All right. So Casa de Suenos is world renowned because not only was it not built as a bed and breakfast, but before that, it served as a private residence, was built for a cigar maker here in town. Later on, it was converted to, of all things, a funeral home and mortuary. That's right. Long before it became Casa de Suenos, it was actually the Garcia Funeral Home and Ambulance Service. The home was purchased in the 90s by a young lady named Kathleen Hurley. Hurley had come to St. Augustine about 1956 the first time, remembered going to the oldest schoolhouse, had toured all around town, and thought it was kind of a boring place. She'd spent an entire career, over 30 years, jet setting all around, not only the country, but the entire world. And as she's getting ready to retire, she decides that, maybe opening a bed and breakfast would not be such a bad deal. So she's searching around for a place to buy or a place to get into. And sure enough, she decides that the place to show is Casa de Suenos. She turns around at that point. She starts gathering up all kinds of things. She's got stuff packed up in her house in North Carolina. And surprisingly, she opens up one of the packages, and there is a mirror that she had bought almost 15 years before she purchased the inn. But as she opened the mirror, imagine her surprise when she realized it's the exact same shape and style as the windows in the front. And if you look carefully at those windows in the front and taking one of our tours, you will see that the bottom third of those windows are actually filled in today. Those windows were originally built to go from the ceiling all the way to the floor. And it was done so that Mr. Garcia, in his infinite marketing and wisdom, could do something very odd. As soon as he finished with the corpse, putting on the clothes, shaving, giving them a great haircut, making sure they looked better than they've ever looked when they were alive, gently placed them in their coffin and stood them upright in front of those windows so that people going down the street could see his excellent work and the way that he could lay people to rest. Kathleen, though, was not to be doubted, not to be unended by that, and she decides to make a bed and breakfast out of it anyhow. In 2001, she retires. She gets to open a bed and breakfast, and as she's looking for her dream B&B, she first started off in Savannah, but friends told her she should look at St. Augustine too. Her first thought was of the boring trip she'd taken here as a child, and she decided to go to St. Augustine and have a look. It was so close to Savannah, why not? The owners of Casa de Sueño showed her the bed and breakfast, drove her around St. Augustine, and introduced her to Bill McGrath, the former funeral director. He regaled her with stories about the house and about St. Augustine. She loved the house. She loved St. Augustine and the elderly Irish gentleman who reminded her of her father, but she was ready to see some other places. During the next few weeks and months, Kathleen looked at 18 bed and breakfasts between St. Augustine and Wilmington, North Carolina, and in the end, Casa de Sueños drew her back to St. Augustine like a magnet, and she bought it in July of 2001. The day she closed on the bed and breakfast, Mr. McGrath died peacefully in his own bed at his beach house nearby. Nothing traumatic, but Kathleen had the serene feeling that he was turning the place over to her. A coincidence? When I was working, I went to New York a lot, often several times a month. And after September 11th, all those friends from New York called, "How did you know to get out of here when you did? How did you know?" Of course, I didn't know, Kathleen admits, but perhaps there was another coincidence. 15 or so years ago, while living in North Carolina, she had bought the mirror I described earlier. When she was moving into Casa de Sueños, she stood in the dining room surrounded by the boxes, and as she opened and unpacked each box, she came across the mirror she had purchased so long ago. Taking it out of the box, unwrapping it, she held it up to look for cracks or other damage. It was astonished to see that the mirror matched the shape and design of the dining room windows exactly. Yes, Kathleen Hurley believes in coincidences. She does admit reluctantly, though, that she has at least one ghost in Casa de Sueños. That's Randolph. That's the name she and her staff, Monica and Carol, have given him. When Kathleen first moved in, she was alone in her office one evening and stacks of boxes, sorting things and putting them away. Suddenly, all the stuff in one of the boxes seemed to jump out and land on the floor. The box was sitting on the floor. It didn't fall over. There wasn't an earthquake. The things inside just jumped out. Needless to say, Kathleen was startled. Several days later, a candle did the same thing, jumping out of the box that it was in. Whenever the staff can't find a key or something weird happens, they speak to Randolph about it. "Come on, Randolph, give it back." And it shows up. One recent Sunday morning, Carol and Kathleen were sitting in the sunroom. There wasn't another soul in the house, when all of a sudden they heard a loud kaboom, as if a large heavy object had been dropped on the floor. A coffin, perhaps? "What the heck was that?" Kathleen asked. Carol answered, "I don't know, but we don't have any ghosts, right?" And they both laughed. No ghost, only coincidences.
So
And that Go
I
ahead.
think that's interesting because the Casa de Suenos it's extremely haunted, and the spirit of Randolph. I'm pretty sure I had read another story where Kathleen, it's the same person, same owner. She had an experience that she described as like something killed a bunch of palmetto bugs or cockroaches or something like that, or maybe it was some sort of vermin, and she was terrified of it, and she like screamed and ran out of the room, and that she heard like a loud bang, and when she came back into the room, the vermin was dead, and so that she like thanked the spirit for killing. I don't know if it was just like her joking or whatnot, but she claimed that the spirit knew that she was afraid of whatever the vermin was and killed it for her.
Right.
I think it was like palmetto bugs or something. If you're from Florida, you know we
That's
got
my
tons
kind of
those.
ghost. I don't do palmetto bugs either.
Me too. Thank you, Randolph. So I feel.
Yeah.
But
Who says Casper can be the only friendly ghost, right?
I dig Randolph. I think he's a cool ghost. I mean, as we were talking before, there's so many ghost sightings in St. Augustine. We could probably go on and on. We could probably just do a whole stream about the Casa de Sueños. There's just so much to talk about. But this is a really great story, especially with the original owner, Kathleen.
Well,
So
maybe one of these days we can get with the new owners,
yeah.
and maybe they'll invite us. Maybe we'll go do a live stream from there one night. I think that'd be lots of fun.
Do you know if Kathleen Hurley still is alive? I feel weird asking that question.
I'm not sure if she is or not, but I'll research that and find out.
Yeah, I would love to, have
I
her
know
do
that
what
she has
Ephraim
since
did.
sold it. I know that she has
Yes.
since sold it.
I know that too. I wonder if she'll maybe do a video. I think, what do you guys think? Write in the comments. Would you like to hear from the owner of the Casa de Sueños what her experiences were coming directly from her mouth? If we can get that to happen. Yeah, if you have any sort of paranormal experience, please send it to us. Roger, you had an experience at the fort in 2016. We'd love to know about it. Thank you,
And if
Jennifer.
you'd like to be on camera, we can arrange that as well.
Yes, we totally can.
We
Just
would
send
love
us
to
a
have
video.
you on, and we can do that.
Thank you guys for watching so much. I hope you enjoyed this stream. If you did, be sure to share it to your friends and give it a like so that we can keep making these for you. We really love doing this. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Good night, everybody. Be
Good
safe.
night.